years old, and it came with the panorama of the Battle of Waterloo. It was painted by a Frenchman. I wonder if it would not be interesting to have one now, one of those huge panoramas where you stood in the center on a platform and all around you on every side of you was an oil painting. You were completely surrounded by an oil painting. It was then I first realized the difference between a painting and out of doors. I realized that a painting is always a flat surface and out of doors never is, and that out of doors is made up of air and a painting has no air. The air is replaced by a flat surface, and anything in a painting that imitates air is illustration and not art. I seem to have felt all that very intensely standing on the platform and being all surrounded by an oil painting. And then there was Sarah Bernhardt. San Francisco had lots of French people in it, and a French theater, and one naturally knew little girls and boys who talked French at home quite naturally. And so when a French actor or actress came to San Francisco, they always stayed a long time. They liked it there, and of course when actresses or actors stay anywhere, they always act, so naturally there was a great deal of French spoken in the theater. It was then that I found out quite naturally that French is a spoken language, and English a written one. In France, whenever anybody writes anything and wants anybody to know what it is like, they read it out loud. If it is in English, it is natural to pass the manuscript to them and let them read it, but if it is in French, it is natural to read it out loud. French is a spoken language, English really is not. Sarah Bernhardt made me see the thin arms of French women. When I came to Paris and saw the little midinettes and montmartroises, they all had them. It was only many years later when the styles changed. In those days they wore long skirts, that I realized what sturdy legs went with those thin arms. That is what makes the French such good soldiers, the sturdy legs, thin arms, and sturdy legs, if you see what I mean, peaceful and exciting. That is what makes all the French able to ride uphill on bicycles the way they do. No hill is so steep but that slowly pedaling up and up they go, men and girls and little children, the sturdy legs and thin arms. The other thing that was French there in San Francisco were the family of Henry Henrys. That was their name. There was a father and mother. They were known as Monsieur and Madame Henry. And there were 5 children. The oldest, Henry Henry, played the violin. We used to go there in the afternoon and stay to dinner, and then we used to dance, the Henry children and ourselves, to the French music of the violin. And we always for dinner had a roast of mutton, et gigot they called it, cooked the same way as when I went to school in Paris, and potatoes in the butter around it, clean-looking potatoes, not so dark as when they were cooked American. But the thing that was most exciting were the knives and forks. The knives had been sharpened so much that the blade was as thin as a dagger with a slight bend on top, and the forks so light that when you pressed on them, they bent. These knives and forks were the most passionately French things I knew. I might say I ever knew. Then there was Malay's Man with the Hoe. I never really wanted a photograph of a picture before I saw Malay's Man with the Hoe. I was about 12 or 13 years old. I had read Eugenie Grandet of Balzac, and I did have some feeling about what French country was like, but the Man with the Hoe made it different. It made it ground, not country. And France has been that to me ever since. France is made of ground, of earth. When I managed to get a photograph of the picture and took it home, my eldest brother looked at it and said, "What is it?" And I said, "It is Malay's Man with the Hoe." "It is a hell of a hoe," said my eldest brother. But that is the way French country is. It is ground like that, and they work at it just that way with just that kind of a hoe. All this was all the Paris France I really knew then, and then for a very long time I forgot about Paris and about France. Then, one day when I was in college at Radcliffe in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I was on a train, and sitting next to me was a Frenchman. I recognized him as a visiting lecturer, and I spoke to him. We talked about American college women. "Very wonderful," he said, "and very interesting, but," and he looked at me earnestly, "really not one of them, now you must admit that, not one of them could feel with Alfred de Musset that le seul bien qui me reste au monde c'est d'avoir quelquefois pleuré." I was young then, but I knew what he meant, that they would not feel like that.